Hi there. So it's been this is the day that we had free to go into Borislaw, and I've just come back after a long day. I'm actually sitting in the grounds of the Schudnica hotel that we're staying in. Schudnica is about 6-7 kilometers south of Borislaw, and you can see the hills around me with forests, and these are very typical of the forests around Borislaw. And in fact, one of the guys who's with us comes from Schudnica. He's 83. He's with us here in the group, and he's been helping us to guide us around this week of being here in this area. And he was hiding in these forests, and he built what they call bunkers to hide in these hills during the 2.5 years that the Germans controlled this area. From 1939 to 1941, the Russians were here, and then in about June, July 1941, the Germans came in and pushed the Russians out. Sorry, so it was a bit more than he was released in 1944. In the middle of 1944, he was freed by the Russians that came back and pushed the Germans out, and basically pushed the Germans back into Poland and then on to Germany. But anyway, these are the hills around this area. We've just come back from Borislaw. We left this morning early, about 9 o'clock, and there were about 6 or 7 of us in the car, and we went to a few places that each of us wanted to go to. From my side, we started at the first place we started at was the what they call the mounted police. They were horse-mounted police, and they had a police station. These were Ukrainians who had a police station. Sorry, these were Russians who had a police station on the main road of Borislaw. And at the back of the building there are a number of stables that are still there, and thanks to Borislaw Linhardt, he was able to identify the place, mainly because his house that he lived in was right across the street, and I've got clips on that, and that'll be shown within this presentation. But basically his house faced almost directly across the road to the police station. He witnessed the night in, I can't remember the exact date, I think it was July, the beginning of July, I think it was maybe the first week of July, 1941, when the Ukrainians went on a rampage through Borislaw and collected about 200 Jews and basically killed them on the footsteps and in the courtyard, or the back area of this police station. I talked about that earlier in the other clip, and the reason that the Ukrainians basically went on this rampage is because when the Russians left, they knew the Germans were coming into the town. They ran. The local people came to the police station and found the bodies of 20 Ukrainians in the basement of the police station. These were Ukrainian nationalists, and they of course were very angry and decided to take it out on the Jews, because the Jews were associated with the Russians and were associated with the Bolsheviks. So that was where the first pogrom started, and that's where we started our day, looking at that location, identifying where it was, and looking and seeing Borislaw's house. He only lived in that house for a few years, because that was the house that the Russians allocated to them after his family were moved out of their original home. It's been a very intense day. We did a lot. each member of our group wanted to go to a different address, and we did find most of them. The next stop we had was next to the post office in Borislaw, where we found the location of the house of Zev Hennefeld's mother. He's one of our group. Zev Hennefeld is, well, today in his probably mid-70s. His mother grew up in Borislaw, lived here till she was 22, and left Borislaw to go to Israel well before the Second World War. But anyway, he found the house. The house has been repaired and it's been fixed up, but it's based in the same location. And amazingly, the guy who had the house, who's got the house, showed us the basement. And this apparently was the original basement of the house. He rebuilt the house on the, basically on the original foundations, and the basement was there. And I went down with Zeev into the basement, and he was very, very emotional about having, connected with that place, because he heard a lot of stories about it, and it was very much connected with obviously with his grandparents and his mother. And I've got film of that, of what he said in that little basement. You can see where they still use it for storing pickles and keeping things cool, because that was the way there were no fridges in those days, so they used to keep stuff in the basements. They used to take potatoes and vegetables, and they would pickle them and put them into the basement and keep them there for the winter. And a couple of us went down into the basement, and that was also very, very special. And Zeev was obviously very emotional and spoke to his family. I have it on video of his experience of that, going down to that basement. From there we went back to the middle of town, and we went across the main square, about 50 meters over the main square, and we found the house where Yaakov Linhart lived, where his family lived, I think, on one of the floors of the building. And in the basement was the confectionery. And the amazing thing, as you probably know by now, is that when you go down into the confectionery, which is in the basement, the ceiling of the staircase going down into the basement has still got the name of the confectionery, which is called Lido. The name is still there on the actual roof of the staircase, and that's the only sign of it ever belonging to the Linhart family. But I went down there, and one of the guys in the building came down and showed us around, and he was very generous and showed us a box of books that were there, and we found a couple of old books. We don't know the exact nature of one of them, but some interesting photographs in one of them. Nothing with any Jewish connection, but some history of this area. And he gave me the books. I gave him a bit of money, but he gave me the books, and I'm going to bring them back with me. I don't know what I'm going to find in them, but anyway, just thought that we may discover some interesting information. The other important thing to know about that building is that, and I filmed it, is that there are two small windows. If you can imagine, the basement is slightly above street level, but most of it's below street level, and there are two windows above street level on the outside of the building, obviously to give air and light to the basement. And in Bezalel's book, the story is that a German, for some reason, we're not sure, I can't remember the exact reason, wanted to get rid of Yaakov Linhart, and he fired at him through one of those windows whilst he was in one of the rooms in the basement, in the confectionery. And the family came and found Yaakov's body lying in one of those rooms in the basement, in the confectionery. So I saw that and filmed it, and it's obviously very run down now, and the whole building is very run down, but it looks like it has not been touched or fixed up in any way, probably since those days. It just looks very, very bad. The plaster's peeling off the walls, and it's really not in good shape at all. But from the other perspective, it's interesting that it's something that we can kind of still connect to, in the sense that we can identify that that was where the Linharts had their confectionery. There are quite a few rooms in the basement, and they obviously had places there to prepare and to sell the stuff and whatever. There are about, I don't know, 6 or 7 rooms there at least. From there we went about another 50 meters up the road, and we came to the Ukrainian police station, where according to, again, to Bezalel, his father was taken, Yitzchak was taken to that station, and he was interrogated in the basement of that police station, and from there he was taken to Drohowicz and murdered in Drohowicz, and we're not sure, but I believe he was buried in the forests outside Drohowicz. You'll see in the other clips the pictures of, for example, we went to the Bornica forest, and it could be that that's where he was buried. But one of the things that our guide, Shmuel, was able to persuade the people in the police station to let us go down into the basement. It's one of these kind of, it's outside the building, at the back of the building. They lifted up a big metal sort of cover, and there were steps leading down into the basement. We went down, and there were again about 8 or 10 rooms with heavy bars on the windows. The windows were slightly above the street level, so it let light in. But there were obviously these were the rooms that they used in the police station to keep prisoners, and at that time they kept Jews, and they used to torture them there. And it's very run down and very dirty, and no light and all that. Hard to see anything there, but one gets a sense of very foreboding, very kind of difficult. And Bezalel writes about the screams that they used to hear from that place. Apparently, our guide Shmuel said that the police used to put music on a loudspeaker out near the police station so that people wouldn't hear what was going on inside. You know, heavy stuff, and very, you know, this one thing after another today was just very emotional and very powerful to experience. From there we went to, just trying to think now, we drove through one of the areas called Volanka, which is a suburb of Borislaw, and we got, before that we went to an area where there's a couple of schools, what they call the gymnasia, and there's a junior school. And there are 2 stories here. One is that in the one building, a Jewish family managed to persuade one of the local Ukrainians to let them hide in the ceiling of a building that belonged to the school. And we climbed up these old stairs. The whole place is very, very old and very run down. But we climbed up these stairs. We saw a ladder going into the ceiling, but we couldn't quite identify it. It was very rickety and very probably quite dangerous to go up into the ceiling. But we reckon we got into the area where they probably hid. But they managed to survive the war. Mayor, his name is Mayor. Forget now. I forgot the name. But a family that managed to survive the war by hiding. It's a bit like a Anna Frank kind of story, that they were able to hide in the ceiling of the school, which was obviously, you know, probably not a very common place for the Germans to look for, because it was a public place with a lot of people in and out, and not a home, and not easy probably for them to think that people would be hiding in the ceiling. The other part of that story is that we went to another section. It's a whole campus there, really, old buildings, and our friend Shmuel showed us the junior school that he went to there after the Russians left. He went after the Germans were kicked out by the Russians at the end of the war. The Russians basically were in control of Borislaw again for the second time. And life returned to normal, and the Russians were very, very good at organizing schooling for the kids, and he immediately got enrolled in the school, and this was the school that he went to, where he finished one class there. We went into the school and we were shown around. It's very parts of it very run down. They were showing us around. They have very tough conditions here. Everything is very, very run down and very kind of, you can see they really don't have any money at all. I talked about it earlier. The roads are really bad, potholed, and the cars, a lot of the cars are old and in very bad shape. There are a lot of new cars and quite fancy cars, but the taxi we just took back from Borislaw to here was had a broken windshield, and he was bouncing around the road and didn't seem to care about the potholes, and I'm sure his car is not going to last very long. So I don't know, how they managed to make the amount of breakdowns they must have is enormous. So we looked around that whole school area, and we spent a bit of time there. And then we went up to we went to have lunch in a nearby town. Sorry, but I forget the name now. I'm not great on these Ukrainian names. About 5-10 kilometers from Borislaw, we went and we had quite a nice lunch there. It's more of a touristy place where a lot of Ukrainians come for holidays. It's a famous place for mineral spas and mineral baths, and it's quite fancy actually. There's some nice hotels there, and the infrastructure seems a lot better there, and you can see there's money there. We had lunch there and we walked around a bit, and then it started pouring with rain, the first real heavy rain we've had since we've been here. And the rest of the group then decided to come back to the hotel. We, two of us, Yossi, Rand and myself, decided to stop over in Borislaw on the way back, because the minibus came back through Borislaw, and we got off and we walked around Volanka, which is an area where Yetka Linhart lived with her two daughters. She also ran a confectionery in the area of Volanka. Borislaw is made up of a number of suburbs, and actually Borislaw is quite spread out. It's quite over a large area. From north to south, it's probably at least a 20-30 minute ride by car, so it's probably about 10-15 kilometers in length. I don't know about in width, but it's long and narrow and spread out. So we stopped off in Volanka. It was still raining a bit, and then we walked down into the center. I took a few photos there and filmed. It was still raining, and when I wanted to go to the train station. That was one of the things on my list to go to, and we didn't know where it was, so we asked the policeman who was parked there on the side of the road where the train station was, and he told us we should carry on down the road about 1 kilometer and we'll find the old train station. He kind of explained to us that the station is not in work. He thought we wanted to catch a train, and he tried to explain to us that it's not running. It's not working railway station, certainly for passengers. But we explained to him that we just wanted to take photos. My friend with me, Yossi Grand, has a smattering of Polish and Ukrainian and German. He knows a few words, so he managed to make himself understood. So we started walking towards the train station, and then a couple of meters down the road, we heard the police car give a hoot with his siren. And he gestured to us to come, and he very kindly gave us a lift to the railway station. Very nice of him. We got into this police car, and just to give you an idea, I mean, this police car looked like it was on its last legs. It really was in very bad shape. His gearbox was like, you could see the gear was just turning around, and he very, very poor conditions for a policeman having to work. But he very kindly took us down to the police station, to the railway station. Something, we probably would never have found it if he hadn't have taken us. and we spent a bit of time walking around this old railway station. This was a railway station where many Jews were collected from Borislaw and put on railway on cattle trucks and other rolling stock, and were shunted to concentration camps. Amongst them was Clara Linhardt, the sister of Bezalel. She was taken to Auschwitz, and I filmed a bit of that area, the railway lines. The railway is still used for transporting goods, but not for passengers. And so that was also quite moving. And I took a picture of one of the probably the warehouses on the railway line, where they may have put the Jews into before they went off on the trains. Bezalel writes very vividly about how the Jews were kept in this building for a couple of days. They were packed in there like cattle. Very horrific conditions, and they were kept there for 2 days, or I don't know how long, for a long time, until the trains came to collect them. Apparently people died in that building before they were even before they got on the train. As we were leaving the railway station, which was quite a distance from the town in the end, we happened to notice a taxi driver coming by and managed to wave him down. And a few minutes later he came back and he gave us a ride back to the hotel here in Skudnice. So it's been a day packed with a lot of different experiences. We've, I think, achieved quite a lot in terms of what we saw. You know, it could have perhaps been a bit more relaxed. I wanted to walk around. There's a big park area in the middle of Borislaw. I wanted to get a feel for that and just get a little bit more feel of the atmosphere of some of the suburbs. But we certainly got the key sort of things that I wanted to see, we got to see. And I guess now the question is how to absorb what I saw and try and kind of understand what it's been like for me to visit here altogether. It's not been I would say an easy process. I would say that it's a lot of mixed emotions, a lot of mixed feelings. I've always had I've always had a very strong interest in the history of this place and in the history of our family. And coming here physically and seeing it has, I don't know, sort of brought up a lot of strong feelings. Just to give you an idea, Gail will know that I'm not a very good person in the morning. I don't get up easily in the morning. But since I've been here the last 4 or 5 days, I've been waking up every morning at 5 o'clock without alarm clocks, and going out for a walk at 6 o'clock every morning, and back at 7 having breakfast. And I'm just feeling my whole rhythm of my body has kind of changed, and I'm obviously it's probably expressing some of the turmoil that's going through my mind and whilst I'm here. I'm going to write some more in my diary, and this is my way of telling you about what happened today. This is the one really focused day we had in order to be in Borislaw. Although we were with the group, I think I benefited a huge amount by being with the group and being able to experience the history of some of the other people, and it's been amazing. I'm going to end off now, and I'm going to do some writing. Boy. Okay. And anyway, oh, sorry, one of my friends was just wanting to come and say hello. I'm going to end off now, and I've still got a lot to process and a lot to write about, which I will do. But I wanted to do this clip to give you maybe a feeling of what happened today on this free day, what we will call the free day of being in Borislaw. So I'll sign off. Bye now.